pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, look for a motion for the approval of the minutes.
I'll move that.
Second.
First and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. One, resolutions. GC1 is a resolution authorizing execution of the settlement participation agreement with 6 opioid distributors or dispensers of certain terms of opioid litigation. And it's going to be in the amount of settlements will provide up to $97,625,000.
I would move we send this for legislature.
Second. Have a first and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you. GC2 is a resolution creating one position in the Public Defender's Office. This is going to be for a typist, grade 3. It's in the amount of position. It's pays $35,314. And it's using existing grant funding from the New York State DCGAS.
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a first.
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
GC3, so resolution deleting one position in the clerk of the legislative budget. And this is, there's nobody in there now, and it's just cleaning up the budget.
I move that. Second.
Two seconds.
Yes, second.
Okay. First and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We'll go on to Mark. Let's do the town clerk first.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few updates. In the clerk shop itself, we continue to do our cross training, which is, as I've said previously, something I found when I took over as clerk is that people were kind of in their silos. We have 3 silos down there, and I didn't really like that. So at this point in time, we're about 3/4 of the way through with all the staff being moved from each of the 3 areas and really understanding what's going on. I'm very happy to see that they have taken to that so well. We are catching up as a result of that and being very thorough with our training. We are able to catch up on a lot of our smaller projects that we have, such as finalizing our maps and getting them hung and everything. They're all scanned in, but it takes a little bit of time. It's like our arts and craft time to cut our maps and paste them and everything, and so they're on our plot map cabinets. And also, today we will finalize our technology upgrade, which will be moving all of our computers from Windows 10 to 11. And also with that, we finally, after a year and a half, we're leading the charge in the state with IQS to have our credit card system merge with our software system, so we don't have to have 2 separate systems. We'll finally have one system, which is pretty good for our staff, and it has less errors that way. In DMV, we continue to do our cross-training with our dealer section and our front counter. That's going pretty well. Just hired 2 new clerks for the vacancies that we had, so we will be full staff. And in the record center, we continue to add new departments that we're scanning with for our holding of our records that need to be held. Outside of that, today I have to finalize our DMV audit, and we heading in the right direction.
Thank you. Any other questions? Eric? Thanks, Rick. Strategic initiative?
The papers are here. Yeah, I think they stepped out to discuss something else.
Solid, we're going back in. Real property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing too big to report. Our tax maps were updated this past month with all the changes effective March 1st. So those have been published online, and our mappers have started working on the next year. The assessors are expected to be finishing up all their tentative assessment rolls by the end of this month. The end of next month, in a couple of days is the next month, end of April. And then our new real property website is in the preview phase right now. We're reviewing it in our office before we can have it. They're going to put it on our current website as a button to opt into so people can see what the new change will be. And then there'll be a testing phase, hopefully by March 1st. That new website will be rolled out to the public. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So, last month, at the last meeting, we had a fellow come in, Jamie, I don't know if this is the right department to talk about it, Jamie Spa, about code enforcement. In the North Country, there was squatters.
Mhm.
They were paying, the squatters would come in and pay the taxes for that year, like $500, and they'd stay there.
Mhm.
Is there any way we can get rid of them?
And from as far as the taxes being paid, since taxes are on the land, anybody could pay them. I mean, I could pay your taxes, and
Right.
you wouldn't even have to send me a thank you note.
Is this a place where we could do something to take care of that, so he doesn't have this issue? Because he says if we could turn this property over, we could get it
Well, I mean,
upgraded instead of squatters living there?
I was gonna say, isn't squatters more of a legal concern though?
Yeah.
You know, like the sheriff's office.
So it wouldn't be this department, it'd be more public
Yeah.
service, public safety?
County attorneys who I'd probably talk to too. Just that if there's squatters, then they're
According to
trespassing.
my office, it's whoever's on the deed is the person that owns the property. So if you own the property, but they're paying taxes for you, then you still own the property.
Oh, yeah.
It's just you're getting the taxes paid by somebody else, so they're not foreclosing. The only time the county's going to come into play is when you're back on your taxes and we take possession of it. And we don't take possession of it until the judge says we take possession of it. So at that point, we can't do anything until we own that property. The county.
I think part of the other question was that the landlord was deceased.
Yes. Both landlords.
Deceased,
Yes.
so someone else was just paying the property, second one.
That's something we had to address.
So how do we resolve it?
That would have to be addressed with the county attorney.
Somebody had to pursue a trespass of sort.
The county attorney.
Well, if the owners are deceased, you're gonna have to start
Yes.
probate proceedings.
Yes.
I mean,
That's what the county attorney said.
yeah, this is definitely county attorney.
Last time, you have to be, you'd have to handle it.
I'm just trying to help this fellow out.
There's no,
If it's this department or if it's public safety, I don't care. I just want to help this guy out.
I
He
think,
sounds like he makes a lot of sense.
I think what the county attorney said is what was going to happen about it.
I missed what, I'm sorry, I was late. I missed what happened. So, can you just give me a really quick recap?
Well, they're talking about taxes being paid on the property where both owners are deceased, there's squatters on the property.
Okay.
And they're looking for a way to remove the
I
squatters.
think, is this Sandy Creek? Okay, yeah, I've already been in touch with code enforcement and working on that, as far as what the county can do.
And who are you? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Christy Carrington, I'm in the county attorney's office.
Oh,
Jim,
Actually, Brad and Christie have covered it mostly. This is like a civil issue.
right.
I mean, we're certainly glad she can help do whatever. So it's just, I mean, it's a problem. There's no easy answer. It's not like,
It's definitely not the first one in dealing, especially with the health department, looking at public health instances and stuff. I see it fairly often where their owners are deceased, they haven't started any proceedings in surrogate's court, they end up you know, there could be, I have one right now where there's 9 siblings. None of them want to do anything. One of them is living in the house. I mean, it's pretty difficult to intercede like that. But if the taxes don't get paid, and in that case, they did pay one of the siblings did pay the tax. So it's more difficult for the county to intercede. But.
I would offer if anybody wants to pay my taxes.
I'll still live there.
Then you're gonna have squatters in there.
I'll be the squad.
I'm good.
Okay, that's it. All set. Tim, you're back. We'll have Strategic Initiative Department.
Yes, sorry. Well, talk real quick shortly on the broadband. So we are 1 month closer to the deadline, as we've discussed. December 31st, 2026 is the deadline. Our project has to be completed by that date. So we are actively working along on that process. We've had, I'll bet you, 5 meetings with the state last week. As I think I mentioned at the last month's meeting, it's very fluid on what the scope is. The state is, we had our original intentions 2.5 years ago. As we get tighter and tighter, closer and closer to the deadline, the state is revising the scope to match what can actually be completed by the deadline, with the understanding that there will be additional funds to do additional work down the road. So we're trying to make the smartest strategic move. Quick reminder, it's $30 million of federal funds that the state applied for. They are the initial recipient, and then they have kind of sub-granted it to us as the county. So everything we do has to go back to the state, which then has to go back to the federal government. So that's been part of the issue. So long story short, we have about 105-mile, essentially we've been calling it middle mile or a highway, so to speak. That will be our backbone, and we'll be able to build off of that as time goes on. We had a meeting, actually a good meeting this week with a wireless company that does wireless service kind of in the more rural areas, because sometimes it doesn't make sense to drive along and put these lines on poles to go 1.5 miles to serve 3 people. And so a wireless option could be a really smart move. Originally, the state did not allow that to be to count as being served under the rules. They have revised it because the service that nowadays you can do with wireless is almost as good as, it's better than what you currently have, and it's almost as good as the broadband. So we're moving forward with that as well. That could give us an option to serve more people who are unserved by the end of the deadline, which would allow us to use the state money to do it. Again, no local share. So moving on that, if anyone has any more detailed questions, I'd be happy to answer those. But like I said, it's a pretty fluid project right now. And then the ARPA funds, the other thing that Strategic Initiative is doing, ARPA funds, we are closing those out on a pretty regular basis. I believe we closed out 2 in the last 2 weeks. And so we are on pace to close those out as well.
Yes, Ed.
How are we doing with the registration of the temporary housing?
It's a good question. We got our second one in almost 5 weeks. The big issue that we have in the short-term rental is, although it is a law, it's a county law, there really isn't a lot of teeth right now. We don't have a tax that goes along with it. So right now it's just a law stating if you are going to do a short-term rental, or if you currently are, you need to register. And although we put out multiple press releases, it's hard to kind of get to that person. And you probably all know someone who runs a short-term rental. Unless you kind of knock on their door and say, hey, this applies to you, you really should sign up, it's hard to kind of get them to make that next step. We are actively working with both Airbnb and Vrbo. If you're familiar with those programs, most people who run a short-term rental use one of those two. And so what we've talked to them about is putting on a required field. So if you are in Oswego County and you try to use Airbnb, in order to sign up, you'll need to put your county registration number in, or they won't let you do business in Oswego County. And we think that that will be kind of that piece that really hold people accountable, says, hey, you really got to do this, or you can't transact, which is the intention. The alternative would be to chase down every address in the county that is currently operating in these, send them a letter, which you could potentially do, but that's a lot of legwork, and we're really hoping that this process does work. Once the tax goes through, and I believe I think this month there is a public hearing being scheduled for the short-term rental tax, that will add that additional level of, hey, now there's a tax that's being collected, and we're hoping that, we kind of get the registry done, and then that's the next step. So to your question, 2. We have 2.
So just to follow up, timing-wise, if you use this registration system with the email, what kind of a window do we want to close? 6 months, year?
My intention was to have the registry filled by the time the short-term rental taxation law went in. That would give us that accountability matrix to go back and say, we've received this much money from these addresses. These ones didn't. We can go back to them kind of gently say, hey, this is new, but you do apply. You've got to pay these taxes. Again, it's tricky right now to say. Also, I will be honest, Airbnb and VRBO, they don't necessarily like this. They are not happy with the state law that was passed, and so they have been a little combative when it comes to actually partnering with us. We actually had an email last Thursday essentially saying their lawyer said they didn't have to do it. So when Rich comes back, we're going to have that conversation. Thank you. If I could, to that question, there is a software company that we're talking to that would be able to provide us with the addresses of every short-term rental in our county as a database. So we're working at potentially pulling the trigger to utilize that. It's about $10,000, but we expect that just in registration fees, we should end up with somewhere around $25,000, which would far more than cover that cost. But that would make it a lot easier for us to know where they're located in Oswego and be able to send letters out or some sort of demand. So looking at that as well. Thank you.
You mentioned that there's going to be a public hearing. Do you want that to be?
I believe it's scheduled for, I think there's a resolution going forward. I believe,
I think so. I would have to double check that. I think there is.
So that would be through whatever committee that is this week for.
And then would be probably right before the next lunch meeting.
So it'll be scheduled for the.
Thursday, next Thursday. Okay.
The following
Will they be scheduling the public hearing for the next month, right? Resolution extension. So I believe the public hearing will be in May.
Right.
Correct.
So in May, and then, okay.
Yes.
Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you. Next up, we have the Public Brothers.
Thank you. As reported last month, we are finalizing all of our reporting to Indigent Legal Services, ILS, who funds a significant portion of the Public Defender's Office. Most of those reports are due this week. There's still one or two more beyond that that are due at the end of April, but we're working on that. We're also continuing our recruiting efforts. At this point, we are in the middle of second round interviews for internships. So other than that, things are just kind of plugging forward.
Okay.
Yes.
How much staff are you looking for? And how much do you have right now?
We have 2 typists, we have 4 paralegals, we have a social worker, we have an investigator, we have 2 part-time attorneys, then I always have to count 1.
Sounds like about 13.
I think we have 9 full-time attorneys right now. The state tells us that on top of what we have and what has been approved by the legislature and funded by the legislature, on top of that, to become the primary indigent provider in the county, we need 10 more attorneys on top of that. Those positions were approved in the budget. They're unfunded at this point because we're having such a hard time recruiting people.
So you're looking for over 20 people?
Right now, we're looking for about 14 attorneys.
And the staffing that covers that, you got typists and clerks?
I think with the typist position that was approved today, right now anyways, we should be fine. We are coming into next year, the new cycle of new contract with Indigent Legal Services. So we've already started having conversations with them about the fact that they're the ones that identified and said we need these extra people. And so if you're going to say that, you got to give us funding. So we're already having that discussion to try and sort that out. And would that include additional paralegal funding? Would it include additional typist funding and whatnot. So right now, they tell us that the current 3-year contract that we're in the 3rd year, or about to enter the 3rd year, they will not make any changes. They don't have any money, supposedly, and so they will not make any changes. They will address it in the new contract.
Okay, good luck with your recruiting.
Thank you.
Anything else I want to? Thank you. Next up, we have the site.
Yes, thank you. As Brad had mentioned, our final report to the state is due this Wednesday. The grant claims, traditionally how a grant works is we sign a contract with the state, and then it breaks down into quarters over the course of the year. We spend the money, and then we apply for reimbursement according to the terms of the contract. So the first quarter for this year will be done on the 31st. So when that opens, we'll be applying for reimbursement of all of our contracted items. There is a family treatment court that's going to be created for Oswego County. I do not know the specifics of it yet. The meeting will be next month. I am talking to the state about providing us with additional funds for that. We do have a family court grant that is in place. It was $750,000 over the course of 3 years. So I would be looking at the terms of that contract if the state does not want to give us additional funding for family treatment court. I'll be looking at the terms of the existing contract to see if there are any items in that contract that we are not spending on, to see if we can maybe transition that to cover some costs for family treatment court. At this time, I don't know if the creation of the family treatment court will increase costs for the ACP program or reduce costs. I need to talk to the judges, the attorneys, and see what the structure of that court will look like. It could go either way, in my opinion, but I will be looking at different ways to bring down the costs of family court, because representation for family court is very expensive. Oswego County, unfortunately, has quite a number of children in foster care. When a child is in foster care, it requires more court appearances, and thus it increases the cost overall. So we're looking at different ways to bring that cost down.
Anybody have any other questions?
I did just want to say, I know there are new members on the committee. If anybody has any questions about the difference between assigned counsel, public defender, who covers what, feel free to give my office a call. I know it can be kind of confusing. The creation of the public defender's office is new, so we are transitioning all the time different items over who's covering what. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot me a call.
Thank you. Board of Elections won't be here today. They're pretty busy, I'm sure. I guess we can go jamming. So going to recess.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to go into recess
Second.
and reconvene at 10:30 in the chamber.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.